Hi folks, this is Sarabjit Johal coming to you from IBM Think 2026 from Boston. I am sitting here with Suja Viswesan of IBM. Suja, give me your introduction and we'll get into the discussion after that.
Okay, I'm Suja Viswesan. I lead the security products at IBM as part of IBM Software. I'm the Vice President of Engineering, Product and Design. My portfolio includes the Identity and Access Management, which is the IBM Verify suite of products, data security, which is the IBM Guardian suite of products, including post-quantum cryptography, and not the least, HashiCorp secure lifecycle management products like Vault, Radar, and Boundary.
So all things to do with security.
Yes.
The whole platform, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. So yeah, I have gone through 3 keynotes today, and security was talked about in at least 2 of those. The security posture is changing as we move to the agentic application development or agentic AI-based applications. What are the basic constructs which are changing from our traditional security? And please shed some light on that, and then we can get into the IAM and the policies and the identities and everything else.
Look, what worked for humans is not going to work for these agents. For example, non-human identities have always existed, right? HashiCorp Vault, there are enough products which are specializing in that. What happens with agents is that the non-determinism of it. We don't know, they have agency of their own, because you don't know how they are going to do, what they're going to do. The days of who am I giving access to are gone. What am I giving access for and for how long? That is how this is transforming, if you will.
Who are we giving access to is gone, you're saying. I think that is important, personally. How do we keep track of that stuff, like if we are letting go of that
What
idea?
I mean is that who am I giving access to? Suja, who's a vice president, who has this large organization, so I'm giving her certain access. Now, Suja has so many mini Suja agents that are running. So at that point, each agent has an agency, for example, to do a HR transaction. Another one might be doing. So that's what I meant by for agents, you have to think differently. You have to treat them like humans, but at the same time, what applied for humans will not apply for them. You have to think differently for them.
But we have to still trace them throughout the workflows, just in case something goes wrong. We have to bring in the accountability into the systems, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, because at the end of the day, it will be tied to some humans, like who launched these agents, and what were they thinking when they did that, and so forth, right? So that is important. Accountability still lies with humans to some extent, right? So,
look, if there is no intent, there is no accountability, right? So you need to know the intent. In the cloud days, you remember who is using the number of credits, for example. If an agent is using a whole bunch of credits, under whose direction it was able to do. So you do need that digital audit trail so that you can go, same thing applies for any banking transactions. You need to know who gave the agency to that agent to go do that. So that is very, very important as we are thinking through that.
Okay, under that, if you double click on that, what are the technology constructs which are changing? Is it identity? Is it IAM? Is it logging mechanism we are changing? Are we giving the identity in a different way to the agents than we gave the identity to the humans? Like, please shed some light on that, or on the technology side of things, like what newer technologies are coming into the picture, or what older technologies we are recycling to facilitate agents.
Okay, so for example, at IBM, we use IBM Verify to manage consumer as well as workforce identity. And then you have HashiCorp Vault managing all the secrets and certificates, the non-human identity side of the world. Both of these need to come together and evolve for this Agentic IAM, because there is always a privilege. We talk about privilege escalation that happens for humans. So hey, Suja can access HR system, or can access sales system because she has a privilege to go do it. For agents, it's not just about privilege escalation, it's also privilege accumulation. For example, an agent which is going and doing some work with my HR system. Now it needs a OneDrive access in order to see an Excel. So it accumulates that access. And if it keeps accumulating these access, then the blast radius and the attack surface becomes really, really big. That's why when I was talking about where you have to give it just enough access to finish a task as opposed to standing access. So in the olden times, you gave static access. The days of static access are done. It has to be a runtime access to go do the work that you are needed to do. And once you're done, that access is gone. And there is also enough auditability and traceability so you know who was behind that.
And that's the key. I think that the explainability of the systems is key. So, like you just mentioned, the escalating privileges, like the concept of self-escalating privileges. Please explain what that is. And
So-
self-escalating sounds like pretty scary.
So
word.
these agents are learning. So give a slightly different kind of word. Your valet, you give your car key,
Yeah.
right? And then along with it, you have the house key also. Now they have access to your house. If they ended up accessing your house, it's very similar to that from the agent perspective. What it means, so hey, I want to go access this HR system. Oh, in order to do this transaction, I need to access three other systems in order to do that. So it started accumulating this access. That's what we talk about. Hey, without our intent, it start accessing this system to complete the task, and which we also do it.
Yeah.
Humans do it very seamlessly because we give them one-time access, and I have access to all these systems, and I know I have to do this. For an agent, it can start accumulating these access. When it happens, are we doing it with traceability, and also are we giving it those access without accumulating it just to do that work? After that, it's done. How do we make sure that we do it? So it is not about giving access, it's about runtime monitoring of these access and making sure that those access goes away once it is finished with the task.
Yeah, I think that's a key, that access should go away. But having these systems work in last 2.5, 3 years or so, these systems learn who
Yes.
you are. Like it remembers, like this is Sarabjit. When I ask a question, like okay about anything, I say based upon your persona, and this like I'm saying this, right?
Yes.
So they remember. These systems remember, right? So how do we make sure that the privileges parts are forgotten, but other context is remembered or carried forward? The persistent memory is carried forward. So do you see any sort of conflict there, or like if they go touch like 3-4 systems while I'm trying to touch the only 1/4 one, and they touch 3 others, and the next time I do something, they will still have that privilege, or how do we make sure that part is not persisted?
No, absolutely. Where it needs to have the context, it has to remember the context. Otherwise, they lose the game, right? Then it becomes a agent with no agency, just like how non-human identities were, mission-to-mission identities were working. So they need to have the context, but the dynamic credentials and short-lived credentials are the answer to it, so that they are able to do it, and then once the task is done, that is destroyed. And then next time they need to go ask for permission again. Another example where if I'm transferring $1,000 to you, and in future, we are going to ask an agent to do that. Hey, I've logged into my bank, all my two-factor authentication, everything is done, and then I say transfer this money to Sarabjit.
Yeah.
And then when it is doing it, we have a nice demo for it where it needs to give me a push notification to say, I'm going to transfer, so put the human in the loop.
Yes.
Are you letting me do it? Then once I do that, the next time somebody jailbreaks it to that agent, they won't be able to take money away from me, and they are able to stop it because it's going to ask again. So we need to put those hooks in there for these really sensitive transactions that we put human in the loop. The areas where it's not as sensitive, we put dynamic credentials so they're able to use it and then lose it once they are done.
Yeah, the multi-factor authentication or sort of acquiring of those privileges based upon the human in the loop, that becomes sort of a necessity in this case.
Absolutely.
And I always I'm scared when we are Venmoing money to somebody, right?
Yes.
A contractor came home and they say like, do you want to make a recurring? And I'm afraid always, like I by mistake, I will click on that checkbox
Yes.
and every month the money will go or something like that. So
No, we do
you're
that with,
absolutely
like
right.
when you buy something, you don't realize and you subscribe. Similarly, you don't want to do the same here, and the check and balance is very, very important. Because even I have heard people tell about, we need two-factor authentication for agents. How is that even? They don't have biometrics.
Yeah.
It's a ephemeral thing, so it needs to have ephemeral access, and those biometrics and everything comes to us. We need to make sure that we are there every step of the way.
That's great, actually. How about the Agentic runtime security? Like, is that how much that differs from the Agentic sort of design time security? Sort of, we always talk about security moving to the left. While you're developing software, you want to make sure that it will run securely, right?
Yes.
And the second part is like when it's running securely. Except those are two different sort of constructs. There's a nuance in it, but those are very different constructs.
Yes.
So shed some light on the runtime security and how much that differs from the design time, or what, and also like what are the precautions we should use while doing the design time security for agentic systems?
So we used to document all the policies,
Yeah.
right? So that the agents, humans, and the governance part of it, hey, what can be granted, and then work there. When it comes to agents, you need to codify it, because policy is running as a code now.
Yeah.
Because you've codified it, and then based on the need, runtime, because it's not static is what I'm trying to get to,
Yeah.
because it has to be dynamically given privileges and then taken privileges. So that's the difference as opposed to human and non-human to this agentic security. Because the policy needs to be updated as it is running if it generates a new agent. How do we make sure? First of all, there is policy defined that this can generate a new agent to finish a task. At that point, how does it get credentials? Some static credentials, it can come using the policies encoded in the code as opposed to it's statically defined in the beginning.
Yeah, that's great actually. Is it suffice to say that as human, you have certain privileges to launch certain agents, right? And then from there, if that agent's own privileges kind of fork from there, you as a human being also have some limitations that you can launch these agents, but not those.
Absolutely. That is very important, where some agents which I don't have any privilege of, I shouldn't be able to launch them. So in my case, there are some sales information that I'm not allowed to know before the quarter ends. So I shouldn't be able to go manipulate those and then get the data. So I should be able to go use the agents that I have agency to use them, and those agents should have the agency to do the tasks that are allowed to do.
Allowed to do that. Okay, great. Well, that makes sense. I don't call these hybrid applications, the mix of old constructs and the new constructs. I call composite applications. In security world, what do you call it? The mixing with old and new. Is there any term for that, or?
I mean, everything is hybrid now. It could be the old and the new, because in this case, what I mean is that the human in the loop becomes very important. So what we know of human security from the perspective of identity still exists. And then how do you go change that for agents and have that continuum that, because at the end of the day, I am accountable for all these agents, right? Especially when it comes to healthcare, finance, all those, we need to have that accountability channel, just like what we have with self-driving car.
Yeah.
They have an agency to drive, but still, as long as you are sitting in the driver's seat, you are accountable for it.
Yeah, you hear the directions go from here to there.
Yes.
Like if you say go from here to into the ocean or fall into a ditch, then they
Yes,
will fall into the
exactly,
ditch.
exactly.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. All right. Thanks, Suja, for all this information. Any departing words for the practitioners and or leaders to consider security in a different way or a different manner, or get educated from certain outlets?
So for me, for the security professionals, with AI, they need to be helping it to scale. It cannot be a department of no, because it is scary, no doubt about it, but you have to take the right steps. If not, you cannot scale. So the most important thing is treat agents as a new identity, right? They have to treat it as a new identity. It is not just you can take whatever human you applied, because the scale is really big. Same thing, you cannot apply whatever was applied to non-human into agents as well, because the non-human machines and other, they didn't have agency. These have agency. So treat them as a new entity and then start working towards how do you solve for that.
Well, that's great. From the IBM side, actually, is IBM coming up with a newer set of technologies and or standards, or working with other standards bodies or other technology providers to put the solutions out in the market? My question is from more like a roadmap side of things. Just shed some light without giving us any particular product names or anything like that. Yeah.
No, what we are doing is to how do we solve for these agentic identity? Because you need a control plane. That is something that we are building. We are building a control plane where we get visibility into what is happening, but just visibility is not enough. How do you action it and then manage it? That is something, a journey that we have been embarking on, as well as, look, there is quantum looming as well. And these are all cryptography assets.
Yes.
We are making sure we are doing it right, so it's ready for the future as well.
That's great. So, and then that has to work with the watsonx orchestrate. It
Yes.
will be like a seamless working.
Yes,
with that,
it
right?
needs to work with our ecosystem and also all our partners,
ecosystem.
right? Because especially in the security and these kind of worlds, nobody is going to it's not easy to rip and replace what you have. So how do we work with the partners on what their ecosystem is, and then elevate it to this new agentic era?
Thanks, Suja, for all this information. I look forward to another discussion with you in a couple of months and see what you guys are working on and what progress you have made. And you are from my neck of the woods, the Bay Area, so maybe we'll have you in my studio sometime.
Oh, thank you. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks. Thank you very much.